Marky Worthington Podcast all day.
All day.
Dream by night.
Don't buy me a drink. Just give me $10.
All day.
Go down to the strip club with your floppy disk and turn it into a hard drive.
Yeah, right. You'll get fucking thrown out by Big Tony.
We're here to name names and make people feel more ashamed for shit that they're not proud of.
Don't blow it. Keep it simple. Count your money.
No, whatever it is.
Hey, welcome to the Marky Worthington Comedy Podcast. This is episode 51 with the artist behind the Goosebumps series, Tim Jacobus.
Hey, how you doing?
Good to have you on the show, man.
I appreciate it.
Part of the reason that we kind of had this communication prior to this episode and why I feel like we've been chatting on and off for like a few years at this point is because I had a piece commissioned from you for a tattoo design early in 2020, I believe. But yeah, basically I had a tattoo piece designed by you, or just...
Oh, yeah. I forgot that was you.
Yeah, so I'll just bring up image here just really quick, and I'm only going to flash this because if someone wants to try and screenshot this, but yeah, basically I have switching over. This is the design I had done from Tim in the early 2020.
Yeah.
And then literally straight after that, all tattoo parlors shut down. The guy that I had spoken to get it done is still not back again. So yeah, actually, I get my tattoos in Melbourne, which is Melbourne's like our sort of more like art capital of Australia. Like Canberra may be the capital, but Melbourne's the art capital. It's been a comedian. That's where a lot of people that sort of want to pursue more of a career in comedy go eventually, or they stay in Canberra and have kids and just go to every open mic for the rest of their life. Which I haven't fallen into that trap yet, but I'm at that fork in the road.
How long have you been doing comedy?
4 years now. I've been so I've been doing comedy for 4 years, and I've had my podcast for probably well, this is episode 51, and I put out 2 a month. So,
okay.
But yeah, I'm not about to make 2 artists try and do math.
That's dangerous.
Yeah, I tell you what's more dangerous. I just put myself on the same level of you. Like I, for some reason, just put my
absolutely are.
Yeah.
When it comes to math.
To be honest, if my comedy was art, it would be nowhere near as good as the covers of Goosebumps. It would definitely be probably in the adult horror, not the children's horror. But one of the questions that actually did, because I reach out to any fans that wanted to ask questions, and one that came in, I've got a couple here, but I sort of like to let the conversation flow into the questions and not just have here's 5 questions, bang, 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 bang. One of them that did come in is, I'm sure I'm probably not the first. In fact, I had a look on Instagram to see how many people do get this, but what's it like to see your artwork tattooed on people?
So the first time I saw it, I know it's probably been going on for a little while, but I remember the first time I saw it, I was taken back because I always look at tattoos, and I love the artwork on tattoos, and I've designed, well, for you and for other people, where I'll design an original piece for it. But then when I saw the Goosebumps covers themselves being tattooed on there, I'm going, my first response was, oh, why did you do that? You should have reached out and I'll make you something that's totally yours. But that's not why these people are doing it. They're capturing something that meant a lot to them, whether it's a place and time or whatever it is, but it's that artwork that is, from the book that means something. And it took me a while to get my head wrapped around it. And, like if my kid said, oh, I'm going to get, Slappy tattooed on my arm, I'd go, come on, let me make you something that's totally yours, totally unique. And so now it's been a while, and there's a lot more out there, and I've seen some really incredibly great reproductions. I've seen some unbelievable sleeves where it's multiple images of the tattoo, and so that's art in itself, in recreating the art, especially doing it on skin. And so again, that's beyond flattering, because this is something that's going to be with them forever. And be, a book can come and go, and it might get thrown away, but that too is there. So I'm beyond honored that people think that my art is worthy of a lifetime commitment.
Yeah, well, and you've seen that in person as well. I'm sure at like cons and stuff, people would come.
I was just at a con last weekend,
yep.
And a guy came up, and he didn't even know I was supposed to be at the show, and he had Ghost Beach tattooed on his wrist, and it was really nicely done. And it's very cool.
Yeah, that is cool. Which is why actually there is some good artists in Canberra, but I actually have like a relationship with some artists in Melbourne. I've got two artists, and that's why I specifically go to that artist, because I would want to make sure that any artwork that I get tattooed is actually done some justice by getting done by a good artist. And part of the reason that it worked out so well that I went straight to you, and in answering that question, you also clarified something as well by saying, like, I'm glad that I sort of went to you and got something specific, because I didn't actually know, but that seems like is what you like.
And that excites me more, because now and I hope you look at it kind of the way I do, is you got a one-off, like that's yours and made for you. So and again, I'm sure whoever you get to do it's going to do a good job.
Yeah, no, I I've got a couple of artists, but the one that I specifically chose mostly does like horror, and part of the reason also for the design, letting you know it was going to be a tattoo, I think also changes the like. Because the version I showed was the one with the red inflex, but the one that was suggested to tattoo was the black and grey, because it tends to be easier as a tattoo to, like, as well as age and things like that.
I was just going to say they age much better.
Yeah. So what else have we got? Just there was a similar question to that. I actually had a fan write in who actually indicated in their signature block that they had a PhD, so excellent. Are
we going to be able to answer this?
Yeah, I know, right? Well, I mean, I could have a crack, but I feel like it's not going to be as good as you actually answering it. How about that? For the first half of the show, I'll answer your questions. And then you tell me. It'll be like the back of
that's good.
It'll be like the back of the book. We have the answers page at the end. You can check my work. Actually, to be honest, I could actually answer some of the questions, which I have a question coming up after this, which I know the answer from listening to a previous podcast that you were on. So what we'll do is sort of like elaborate on that answer. To make it a bit more interesting. But I actually have a question here regarding, now I'll summarize it because it was like a paragraph, it was a thesis, but basically your cover art was critical to the success of the original Goosebumps series. I also think that the two-tone color schemes were an important factor in creating a visual atmosphere for the stories themselves. Did you have a hand in selecting the color schemes for each book?
So I got to do whatever I wanted to do color-wise in the paintings themselves. But when I turned the artwork in, there was a different group of people or another person. I don't know exactly what it was, but the book designers themselves were then lifting some secondary colors from the actual art to create the framing in the book and the color of what the word Goosebumps would be. Okay. So they were doing that on their own. I had no say in that matter, but they did an incredible job. And I love the fact that all the books are different. So if you lay them all side by side, there's, we might have repeated a theme, but I'd be hard pressed to say we did, because I went out of my way to make sure I was using different color combinations. Yeah.
Well, actually, there's a second component to this question. So it's, if not, were they sent to you in advance, or I believe more likely they were created to complement your excellent cover?
Yeah, they definitely looked at what I did, and if I had two dominant colors in it, they would pick two other colors that were secondary to that, so that we had the full, something that was definitely complementary or analogous to what I was doing. So, I always was impressed on the choices that were made.
Yeah, so there you go. Your answer already predicted the second part of that question. So there we go. It's and there you go. That's a question written by Dr. People. So like any of my listeners of the show, that's the sort of audience that we can attract depending on the guest. A lot of my listeners are more of the AM radio type. I don't know if that's a thing. Do they still have AM?
That's when I was growing up. I know exactly what it is. I grew up when that's all we had. So,
actually, I like to try and keep it as much to the art as possible. But just a side story. I actually restored an old tube valve radio for my mum, her grandmother. When I was in high school, I was taking woodworking, and it's so crazy to see how much goes. It was like a piece of furniture,
absolutely, yeah. Everything was a piece of furniture. Your TV was a giant piece of furniture. Your turntable wasn't just a freestanding turntable. That was built into the furniture too. Yep. And a lot of times they were all built into the same giant piece of furniture. So your turntable, your TV, everything, all in one thing.
It's one of those things. I think it does kind of tie into the nostalgia. I mean, that's obviously before the 90s that was a thing, but I'm sure that fans of Goosebumps have those vivid memories of the family TV and watching Goosebumps on the. I was actually listening to a previous podcast you're on. I'll give it a quick shout out. The PWT cast, episode 112, and the presenter on the show was talking about how he went on a summer vacation and just wanted to be in the hotel room because they just discovered that there was a Goosebumps TV series, and
that's a little rough on the parents.
It was one of those situations where that's how it was though. I remember that there was the family TV, and there's a massive and we spoke about this before about the collections and the fans that have all the memorabilia. It's actually a thing to collect the VHS because that's how it was presented. That was the medium that it was on.
Absolutely, the big old tapes.
And speaking of the collections, I've actually got now. This isn't this isn't the best picture. I have to advise people that this was a last minute decision where I've just gone, I need to get a photo of all my Goosebumps books, and this was probably about 4 years ago. And I'm doing a lot of buttering up for this photo, but let me just advise people. I actually play ice hockey, and I just come off a six month injury, broken ankle, and I'd been sitting on my couch the whole time. So I want everyone to realise that I'm wearing a singlet after like 20 kegs of weight gain. So yeah, but it's the only photo I've got with all my Goosebumps stuff in one photo.
Thank you for the warning.
Yeah, it's more so just to help you, because I don't want to accidentally.
I don't know if this is going to help me,
dude. I'm to be honest, this is more of a selfish thing, because I don't want to accidentally influence your horror art style by showing you something that is truly egregious. But anyway, this is the only photo I have with all my Goosebumps stuff. And there you go. So that's the original 62 books times 2, plus all of the. I have the additional. I have a couple of additional like special editions. I didn't collect all of the Give Yourself. I'm a fan of the original 62 series. But yeah, there you go. So that's
I did the first one in the Give Yourself series. Escape from the Carnival of Doom.
Yeah, that's the one that I.
Yeah, but then they opted to get another illustrator. I think the fear was that if let's say I got sick, now you've got multiple series in jeopardy because I can't be producing. So I thought it was probably a good safe move. The first guy they got, his name was Mark Nagata. He was good. Yeah.
Now, quickly, we were talking about the art style before of the color selection. You can see how colorful the selection looks when it's all out like that. And you see the like the larger print, the larger books down in the bottom section of that, which had like, there's one that has like a swivel light in it that like fully pulls out and everything, like you said about the merchandising. That's all I really need that photo on there for. I think there's a like the special editions, but I also have the More Tales to give you as well. I liked that series. There was one that came out with like an art set, like a watercolor art set as well. And
I don't know about that. You're telling me something I don't know.
Oh, great. Okay, well, this episode should be just Marky Worthington tells Tim Jacobus about himself.
The shit that he never saw.
Yeah. For an hour, and never lets him talk about what he was here to say.
So before you get going on that, so you still have the full series?
Yeah, I do. I've still got the original.
That's great, because I know people are out there trying to go back and, for whatever reason, no longer have the series and are trying to go back and put them back together again and get a full set. And I know it's getting harder and harder. There's a couple of straggler books in there that are really tough to get. Yeah. And I'm glad you still have a full intact set.
Yeah, so I've got a little bit of backstory about that, and we won't worry about going back into the other thing. Like, we're not circling back. This is we're moving forward with this freight train. So the original 62 was what I first went into, but I found a lot of the time I needed to buy like bulk sets to get one that I wanted. Like, I would literally, so how the story goes is I had the original 62 I had the original 62 minus about 10 books when I was a kid. And they were all given to me by a buddy of mine's older brother who, his parents worked had a solid enough job to afford all the merchandise, and I just had the I was the working class that just sort of borrowed them when he'd finished reading them, and he kind of got to the age where he just grew out of it, sort of moved out of home, and I was like probably about 5 years younger than him, so he gave them to me.
Nice.
And I had them right up until I was about 18, and we're having a garage sale, and there's this. I didn't put. Like the garage was open, and the back half of the garage was stuff that wasn't for sale, and grandma comes up with a 10-year-old kid, and the kid looks at the box and sees the Goosebumps books in there and says, "Oh, can you ask how much they are?" To the grandma, and the grandma says to me, "How much for the books?" And I said. And I'd read them, and I looked down at the 10-year-old kid, and I said, "Oh man, if you think you can get through them all and you're going to enjoy it, you can have them." So I gave them away.
Nice. That's cool.
And then when I was about 23, so I'm 28 now. People think that I'm like 35 because of the beard, so just before you start to think like, holy shit, my fan base is like 35 years old all of a sudden, it happens. Yeah,
there's Goosebumps readers who are that age, so yeah. That's okay.
Hey, absolutely.
They fall into the set.
But yeah, anyway, so basically, I got to about 23, and I was like, hey, I'd like to get that set back again. So I basically went on like a 12-month rampage to get the set, and I ended up by buying so many bulk lots, I ended up with the original 62 times 2. So I've got 2 sets of the original 62.
Nice.
And yeah, tell you what, there's some level of nostalgia behind getting a book that you know's been read, like ex-library books, that sort of stuff. Like I've got a good copy of every book, but the second 62, I specifically kept books that had like library stamps in them and like things from the 90s in the book.
But yeah, right, and seeing a kind of like you say, a more realistic timestamp on it when there's either the old library cards in there, or like you say, somebody's put their name in it, or a stamp or a drawing. Yeah.
The amount that I've got that were like some kid's present, like, hey Johnny, happy happy 8th birthday, hope this isn't too scary, sort of thing. Now, I wanted to bring this up on the show, and we didn't just have the artwork done by yourself, but I managed to get a copy of...
I was just going to bring that up.
Yeah, so it wasn't just the artwork, but I don't know if you remember this, but I had this sent to you to be signed as well.
Oh, okay.
And the story behind this and why why that means so much to me is because I actually bought it from Amazon US and had it shipped to you to be signed and then posted to me. So, like, I thank you a lot via messages, but I just wanted to say face to face, like, thank you for doing that for me. It's one of the prized books in my possession. Yeah,
and I don't know if you look at go ahead and look at Amazon US right this minute, because I was trying to make this point over the weekend when I was at the comic convention. A new version of that book is crazy expensive. It's insane.
Yeah, and it's definitely I won't sort of give it away too much because I want people to still try and find that book, like do the
they're around. You know, I have one used copy. Same thing. I would, they gave me some. I gave them away, and then years later, you used to be able to go onto Amazon and buy it used for literally, the shipping would cost more than the book. So you could get one for $1.50, and I did that for years. And again, I would buy them a few at a time, and you just give them out. And then it became harder and harder. And like I said, I've got one copy left. I'm just going to sit on it. It's used. I bought it. It's it was somebody else's. And yeah, I think over the weekend I saw that a pristine or new one of those books is almost $800.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and listen, let's do a little public service here right now and tell your viewers that do not buy this book for $800. I wrote it. I know it's not that good, so save your money.
Oh man, see, this is the thing. Standard personality from New Jersey, as funny as an Australian comedian.
Yeah, we're all a mess here in New Jersey.
Dude, I love it. We have one comedian in Canberra. And this isn't a dig at. I'm not showing that my parents brought me up wrong here. She legitimately tells me to bring. I MC a comedy room here in Canberra, and she tells me to bring her out like this. She's the most mature female Canberra comedian, and it's literally like watching your mum tell sex jokes. It's.
I'm sure she's badass. Yeah.
Oh man, in a New Jersey accent, it's just insane. And I said, "How long have you?" Because it's thick, like it's pretty thick. And I say, like, "How long have you been out of New Jersey?" And she's just like, "Oh, I moved over here. You know, when I'm not going to try and do the accent, but I feel like." An Australian accent should be the antidote to a New Jersey accent. Like, you should cancel each other out, which is why I can't try and do it without doing it a disservice. I've had like the vax for that accent by growing up in Australia, but
yeah, it's one of those things that I don't think it wears off. Whatever wherever you grew up, whatever gets hardwired in, it's really hard to shed the whole thing. What'll happen is if she came back to New Jersey and talked to us, we would go, "Oh, where you been?" You know, you're talking a little funny there. So I have a friend who's Ukrainian, and he says when he goes home that they pick on him for sounding like he's from the States now, and it happens everywhere.
It's like when you go somewhere else that has a dog and you come home and your dog can smell it on you.
I don't know if it's exactly that, but let's roll with that.
No, it's I basically, whether that was true or not, it was only trying to make you laugh. See, as a comedian, I've just undying need for attention, even if it's for someone across the other side of the world. I did tease before. I had a question where I kind of knew the answer to, based on my listening to previous podcasts that you've been on. But basically, there was a question that came through asking was there any Goosebumps artwork that you did that was initially too graphic to use? So, like, did you initially do an artwork that was too graphic? Now, I did hear there was an answer to this on a previous episode that you were on. I'll give him a quick shout out. It's Spear Talk episode 51, where you said that one of them came back with the gnome with the finger in the nose actually was changed to like the finger going to the head, I believe, the garden gnome.
Yep.
There you go. I like to take that, PhD guy. I did some research too. But was there any that were just too graphic?
So we there was like a kind of, there were the only real rule to the Goosebumps covers were no kid is hurt and there's no blood, no red blood. Monster blood, we put it all over the place. As long as it's green and slimy, we could use as much of that as we wanted, or blue, or any other color.
Yep.
But no red. No red blood, and again, no kid getting hurt.
Yep.
But none of the stories needed to go in that direction. When we got to the series 2000, we were trying to do stuff that was a little bit edgier. So what's the name of it? Well, there's a Graveyard Ghouls.
Yep.
Has a bunch of ghouls, and one of them there's an eye popping out of the socket. The skin's peeling off. Werewolf in my living room. He's got some sort of skin disease, and it's red and swollen. So we got to be a little bit more edgy in the second series, but I never did anything, and it was sent in, and everybody went, "Oh, no, don't do that. That's too scary." So it never got that far. And most times it would be picked off long before I did the final art, because I'm submitting pencil drawings first.
Yep.
If I had done something that was outrageous early on, we would have already kind of altered it long before we ever put color to it.
Yeah, okay. That makes sense. Especially you mentioned in one of those two previous podcasts that I mentioned before, with the change to a digital platform, which made it a lot easier to do adjustments and things like that. Was the beginning of the series still done traditionally, or was it all digital?
Oh, the classic series, the original 62, and the series 2000, and all the special editions were all done traditionally.
Yeah, okay.
The digital stuff for me didn't start until it was kind of basically what got me submerged was Goosebumps kind of stopped for a while. And when it did wrap up, that was the majority of my work. So I knew I needed to learn this new technology, and because I wasn't trying to get a piece of artwork done every week at that point, I could settle in and figure all this technology out. So in the mid 2000s is when I started to ramp up and start to do the digital stuff. Then right now everything's digital, unless you commission me to do something that you want to hang on the wall itself. Yep. I'll go back and we'll do some traditional stuff. Mostly my traditional stuff now is black and white only, and they're oversized pieces. I have one that I hang in my living room that's 2 feet by 7 feet. So these are, they're, and it's interesting because first off, I enjoy it because for so many years I was using all those saturated colors.
Yep.
But I was always a fan of black and white. Black and white keeps you from, you can't hide when you do black and white. I may be able to get you to look at things or kind of wow you if I use a lot of colors.
Yep.
It's black and white. The drawing and the technique and the image has to be good, or it doesn't carry. And we kind of talked about that, kind of touched on that when it comes to tattoos.
Yeah.
You see a good black and white tattoo, it's amazing.
Yep.
The other thing is everything now is so full of color. You buy furniture, the paint on the wall, everything. There's nothing, your TV, kind of when I was growing up, the world was black and white. You had black and white TVs. They didn't, nothing was really saturated. Everything was kind of pale. So, being vibrant with color was a outgoing statement. Now it's kind of working the other way around. And so when you hang up a big piece of black and white art, it actually is very attention getting because it's got the lack of color and there's color everywhere else in the room.
Yep. Yeah, it's I I remember asking my dad, like when I was a kid, Dad, was the world black and white, or was that just the camera?
It was something in between. I got to tell you, it was pretty black and white.
Dad says that he has memories that are in black and white because everything.
Yeah, because he lived it, and then it was kind of gray when they did it, and then all the pictures that were taken of it were black and white. So yeah I know the feeling. Yeah, the sometimes you'll have a like I'll do this. I'll have a memory that's based on a photo that I seen. So it's weird how memory will work like that. It'll just associate a memory to an image. So you and I touched on this before the podcast started, where your memory keeps rewriting itself, and the older you get, the more you find that your memories are being rewritten all the time, and it's by the way you tell the story. And what's real interesting is I still have friends that I grew up with that I knew when we were in grade school, and we'll get together and one of us will start to tell the story, that starts with, remember that time? And then they start to tell the story and you go, yeah, I was there, and that's not what I think. I mean, it's close. It's always, like the general idea is there. But there's got a new detail over here, or they've combined two stories together. So yeah, memories are very fleeting, and that's what's nice about the internet, because I may be spitting out some Goosebumps facts, and it's great for you to double check and see if I'm really on my game or not.
Well, speaking of that, there is actually, I found like a 10 things you didn't know about Tim Jacobus.
Oh, great. Here we go. Is this the end? All right, this is the end, my friend.
Well, I didn't want to bore you with a list of 10, but I actually have one here that relates to a question. So it's a good contrast between the two. I wasn't sort of about to rattle off the list of 10 and be like, is that true? It's a bit like when someone tells you a story about yourself. Like, I didn't want it to turn into like, do you remember that time when? Now there's the thing says there's a rumor in this list of 10 that says that the reason that you choose Converse shoes is because you originally worked at a Converse factory. Let's get a fact check on that.
Okay, fact check for that one is no, that's not true. That's definitely not true. The story is that when Converse have been around a long time, and they've kind of always been somewhat popular, but when I was middle school and high school, they were top drawer, and even at that point there wasn't even a lot of good sports sneakers. This was pre-Puma, pre-Nike, all that stuff. So I played on a basketball team, and we wore high top Converse because those were the best sneakers around. But the story that I tell most often is, I wore them all the time. And to the point that they used to smell. My mom used to pick on me and say, oh, when are you going to get rid of those stinking sneakers? Someday you got to get a real job, all that stuff. And here it is all those years later. Can't hold my foot up to the camera because I can't raise it that high, but I got my cons on now, and I always have them on. And they were just identifiable sneakers. And I just started to drop them in the paintings just kind of for fun, to entertain me.
Yep.
And then after I did it a couple times, the art director was like, oh, that's cool. Keep doing that. So I was encouraged to keep at it. So yeah, now it's become kind of a thing, but I don't have any connection to Converse sneakers. They've never given me a free pair of sneakers, none of that stuff. It's just something that I wear. I consistently wear them. And yeah, that was just kind of one of those hidden little Easter egg things that we used to drop in the paintings.
Yeah, and which I was like really happy that the artwork that I'd got for you for the tattoo had the cons in there as well, because it was just that was more of just me making sure it was actually you that was doing it. Once I seen those cons on there, I knew it was authentic. I feel like if it was on one of the shows, like we have a show here called Antiques Roadshow. I don't know if they air that. Yeah, I feel like, in times to come, there'll be like an 86-year-old me walking in with my Goosebumps books. And they'll be checking to see.
They'll be checking for see if they're the original versions.
To see if they've got
And
there's
the cons.
I did actually. There was some research that went into that question, and I wanted to also have the story of the 20% discount that you got from Converse for mentioning them on
On CNN.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true. That's 100% true. I
Yeah.
did write and say, hey, I mentioned, they're going, oh yeah, we know you've been talking about us for years. And and then they mailed me a 20% off coupon like they do anybody else who writes mail. I didn't use it.
I mean, if I look at it this way, if I was going to buy cons anyway, that's a 20% saving. It's like a old saying: the any penny saved is a penny earned.
Yeah, but it was one of those things. I didn't need a pair right at that time, so I'll wait until they wear out, and I'll pick up a new one when I need it.
It's a metaphor for, like, their name is just a metaphor how they knew that one day they would con someone into buying a pair of shoes they didn't need. But yeah, we got that one. Something else I found really interesting by listening to some previous interviews with you. What was it like after 2 years of working with RL Stein to finally meet him face to face, after having done all that artwork and never having any face to face contact?
Yeah, it was great, and it was somewhat accidental. I knew he was going to be somewhere. It wasn't like it was an arranged meeting for us to get together. He was speaking at at an event in New York, and I was in town doing. I might have been delivering a painting, and they said, "Oh, he's going to be, down the street, speaking in, a couple hours." So, hung around town and got a chance to meet him, and he was, he's a nice guy. I'm sure you've seen interviews with him, and a very down to earth guy. It was great. It was nice to meet him face to face because we had been working together for so long. I just, it just was nice to go, oh, this is the guy. I just want to shake your hand. And, at the time I didn't, but I've done this a number of times, and just to thank him for taking me along for the ride.
That's really cool. It's really cool to see, to hear the backstory, because obviously as a kid you wonder, like, when you're reading the books, what the relationship is like. Obviously in my childhood, I always imagined it was like room just filled with people, or like you're sitting next to RL Stein, he's writing it, and he's going, "What do you think of this, Tim?" And
yeah, he's looking over my shoulder while I'm painting it. And, like you say, that's even myself as a before I got into the business, I thought that there would be more contact between illustrators and authors too, but that's just not. It's not the structure of the business, and that's the publisher's job. Like, they should know best what should be on the cover. They're the ones who are facilitating it. Sometimes authors have an idea of what they want, and sometimes I had ideas of what I thought should be on there. But again, they're putting this thing together. They've got the team, and usually it's I shouldn't say I for myself. Most of the time when I was doing it, we were all in agreement. There was never a time where I was going, you rejected the greatest idea in the world, and the one you chose is no good. I wouldn't have turned in an idea. I did 3 sketches for every Goosebumps cover, and I wouldn't have turned one in if I thought it was no good.
Yeah.
So, I'm saying, here's my 3 best, and most of the time they just went, yeah, let's do number 2. All right. And I'd go home and paint number 2. That doesn't sound right, does it? Painting number 2? Yeah.
It's the difference with phrasing is painting number 2 and painting with number 2.
That's right.
Oops, I'll just make sure. Yeah. Awkward time to have like a massive pause while I get the next question. It's just like any of my punchlines. They just need a second for everyone to like consider what I just said. But there's another part here, and it kind of relates to what we were just chatting about there, with the series over the years and all the different adaptations of it, and also meeting RL Stein for the first time. I seen the sort of the cameo spot that he did in the Goosebumps movie, as well. And what was your input to any of the like movie and TV series? Did you have any sort of any say in any of that?
So the TV series, they ran independent. I had no say. No one ever reached out to me. They were based in Canada, so they weren't even in our backyard. And I know they had limited budget to put those shows together. So I think, they had to just look at, I know they looked at the art that was there, and then they would go, well, yeah, I think we can do something that's like this because we can afford to. And then, of course, I never was producing these things thinking about TV or movies. I'm just making book covers. And there's a few things that I created where they're going, we can't do that. We got to come up with something else. There's no way within our budget we can do this. So, and that's the TV show. Now, when it got to the movies and they had the budget and they could do anything, it was cool to see things come to life. It was really cool.
Yeah, it's crazy to see, like, big name actors on like a series that I remember reading as a kid, and you just like and actors that I grew up with, like Jack Black, you're just like, holy shit. And I think also the choice of cars. You mentioned that you predominantly worked on the original 62. I remember there's the Slappies going around in the movie in like the haunted car from the Series 2000 book. Mm-hmm. And they'll even choose like a cool car that would be that type of, like they choose the closest, like obviously artwork is based off a real life thing in most cases. It's kind of modified right, to match the storyline or whatever. But, it's just cool to see. It's cool to see those covers come to life in a movie, and sort of a visual representation of how I thought that storyline would be. And there were so many Easter eggs in the movie for like fans. Like you're sitting there like, holy shit, it's, it's that book. Like it's the monster from that book, But yeah, like I remember we actually had a, look, shout out to my my primary school teacher who sat down at the start of every class. So basically he understood, like if I'm going to share some information about my educational history, which I didn't already by trying to read out loud on the show, I was in the class of boys that basically was just like, we're going to just put you in the all boys class, in in like a co-ed school, we were like the super group. I'd like to look at it as. We were the group of guys that had just done so badly that they're like, we're just going to put you together. Like I've been doing isolation well before 2020 because they totally just they wanted to keep us as separate as possible in the fact that we may rub off on the others. And now I work with them all as comedians, so it's like we've been together our whole lives. But our teacher basically knew that basically nothing's happening before 10 o'clock. So how he would settle us is he'd sit us down and read a Goosebumps book to us, like
what?
Yeah, for the first hour of the day. He would literally just read us a book, and then slowly we got into more of a habit of like one person would read a chapter at a time, and slowly it became like a group exercise.
All right.
And I remember the first book he read us was we started with the start of the series, so we went straight through to Dead House. From the start, and I remember just looking at the artwork, and like I'd already had the series and read some of them at this point, but it was cool to see it also at school. But looking at the artwork from the first book now is this is my fact checker thing. It was the first book 91. Mentioned the first series. Before that, you mentioned that you did some books that were more so like adult aimed. What was the first sort of style of book that you were doing before Goosebumps?
I was doing a lot of different stuff, but I think the one that leans the most towards Welcome to Dead House was I did this series of books. They used to refer to them as Women in Jeopardy. And they were paperback books that came out, and it was always the mom who, is taking care of her kids and going to the grocery store, and she either stumbles on a crime or stumbles on a mystery, and, nobody believes her, and she has to figure it out for herself. And we always used the same formula, which was some sort of building, and then we do the worm's eye view, which is a very low point of view, and then there would be a second element, a doll in the gutter, a random shoe, a cigarette butt, just the random things, and the building styles would all change and the element would change, but we did this a number of times. So when Dead House came along, the art director who I had done all those Women in Jeopardy books said it would be, just do kind of a version of that, but make it more, make it more extreme. So that's where the low point of view, they weren't as saturated in colors. They were somewhat colorful, but I would never put that bright orange that was inside the open door of Dead House to really get your attention that something's going on in there. And that's where the genesis of it was. Yeah, okay.
And people can see just the tail end of the door underneath my picture there if you're watching on the YouTube. This also goes out.
I'll definitely have to start to dig up some of those old Women in Jeopardy books just to put them up so people get what I'm talking about. Yeah.
Yeah, that sounds
I have some of the paintings up in the attic.
Yep. Yeah, it's that's really interesting to hear, like some of the sort of, I guess because in comedy I have what they call the evolution of a joke, and I'm sure that your art style has the same thing. Like I'll go to an open mic and just say the first thing that comes to mind, and as well as actual jokes, but I'll try it out, and then depending on that reply, I'll sort of work on it from there. It's a bit like the pencil sketches and things like that. Now, I've got two more subjects. Are you happy to go for a little bit longer?
Cool. No, I'm good.
Cool, excellent. I know that you're an early morning person. I didn't want to. I know it's your afternoon there, so I mean, at this point, you're probably pushing on, 14 hours of awake time. I know. Actually, it's interesting because I noticed that, like, just in the time frames, a lot of your replies to emails and things when we're queuing this up were always at your time, like 4, 5 o'clock in the morning, and I was like, this guy's a machine. Like, I had to double check the time frame, and just make sure that I wasn't. I thought maybe you'd moved or you're somewhere else, or
I live in a time warp.
yeah.
I do. I get up Monday through Friday. I get up at 4 a.m. Not because nobody's making me do it. I got into the habit of working those hours when my son was young. My son's 23 now, and what was happening is I would leave the house and go to a studio and work, and then I've been doing illustration forever, and illustration usually goes on as the secondary thing and goes on in the evening. So when he was young, and when he was 5, 6, 7, I'd come home, we'd eat dinner, and then I'd go, oh, I gotta work, and then he'd go to bed at 7 or 8, and I wasn't spending any time with him. So what I started to do was shift my schedule so that when I came home, we hung out, we did stuff, and then when he's going to bed at 9 o'clock, so am I. And then I'm getting up, and I was getting up at 3. And so then from 3 until I left to go to the studio job, I had a good half a day's worth of work. The phone doesn't ring, emails don't come in.
Except for mine, my crazy emails.
Hey, but it's your regular day at that time. but let's just say the distractions are much less during those hours, and I found them to be very productive. So even after he grew up and I really didn't have to do that anymore, I got to really like those early morning hours, and I've been doing it ever since. And it's again, it's part of who you are. I mean, there's people who are night people. I know a lot of night people, and I'm a morning person. When I wake up, that's when I'm really cranking. Everything feels like, I want to go. That's when I work out. That's when I wake up shot out of a cannon. And, I really like those early morning hours.
Yeah, no, it's what some people say that, like, I guess some people are more creative at certain times throughout the day, and you just need to find, the mornings that I've gotten up early to, I couldn't sleep or whatever, and I've decided to, I've had ideas about comedy or, jokes or things. Sometimes the morning will be when it, clicks, right? So I think there is definitely some weight in that. But yeah, if I'm going to be honest though, I also bartend as well, and if I'm up at 3, it's because I'm still up, not getting up.
Right. And again, that's less about it. It's a shift in schedule. That's a lifestyle. That's when it goes on. If you're a comedian and a bartender, that shit's not going on at 7 a.m. So you gotta do it when it's appropriate to do it. Luckily, this what I do doesn't warrant. There's no participants, so it's when I feel like doing it is when it can get done.
Yeah. I mean, there's not a lot of comedy going on at 7 o'clock in the morning.
There is, but nobody's paying for it.
I'm glad we feel the same way about breakfast radio. That's actually the holy grail in the comedy world, is scoring a breakfast radio spot. That's like how you do it as a job in my world anyway. So yeah, but anyway, I've already messed that up for myself. So I suppose back to bartending. Now there was I do have a I think it's our final question. So we've got two more bits here. One is our final question, and also I have a segment called Story Time, which we basically just tell a story which we haven't really covered. But so I'll give you a moment to think about that one. But in the meantime, there's a question. Yeah, I love that. I'll give you a moment to think about it. But here's a question that you also have to think about.
Think about it. Okay.
No, but so. Something I found really interesting, which I didn't actually know prior to listening to previous episodes. I love how the previous podcasts have done all the heavy lifting for mine. So basically, I didn't know that the originally Goosebumps was aimed at girls because it was the market. The market was girls were more likely to read, right?
Yeah, the boys' market didn't even exist. No boys were buying books. The only time a boy got a book was if his parents bought it for him. Boys read comic books.
Yep.
But other than that, so yes, when Goosebumps came out, it was definitely geared towards girls.
And once it started to take off in like the boys' market, was there any shift or like conscious change in artwork or writing style? No, well, like you can't speak on behalf of writing style, but for the artwork, was there any conscious change?
No, because I only saw so RL was writing the book at the same time, and he's giving me descriptions of what's going to go on the book. So I didn't get a lot of detail, so I wouldn't know if things were being tweaked to go, if there was more boy characters in the story, or or I wasn't conscious of it. So from my point of view, there was no shift or change. That's a question for RL. He may have said, I started to make, more of the main characters boys, or, there was more conscious, and then again, he might have just continued to just write them the way he felt like it. But, yeah, I'm not, like I said, from a art standpoint, no influence. I was just doing what I was doing, just trying to make cool pictures.
Yeah, awesome. That's I feel like maybe it might have been a subconscious change because if the writing style changed, obviously the artwork would have to change because it's based on the story.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's interesting. And it's also interesting to think that the first publication, the Welcome to Dead House, had gone through the approval process with like the door and everything, and they're like, girls are gonna love this.
Yeah, right. Yeah. The thing is, my recollection of everything is, no one knew it was going to be big. So, like if there was some inclination that this was going to be a monster series, then there would be more people looking in on it and making adjustments and overthinking and doing stuff. At the time, I don't think anybody thought of it as being a great thing. It had potential just like anything else. And I think because everybody just went along and just did what they did best, and there was no external people pressuring or changing things, I think that's why it worked, because it just, everybody got to do their best work the way they thought it should be done.
Yep.
And it clicked, it's hard to tell what the secret sauce was, what made it really work well, but it did.
Yep.
And I'm glad the scenario we were in was that scenario, because again, I did a bunch of books before I did Goosebumps. I did a bunch of books after I did Goosebumps, and I had the most freedom doing the Goosebumps covers. And that was because of two things. One, it got going, and they just, once it got going, they was like, ooh, let's not mess with this. and the second and most important part is we were doing them so fast. There wasn't time to get involved in, too much changes because the next one's right behind it.
Yeah.
And, getting it done was as important as how good is it.
Yeah, I understand that it was around one a month was the churn out.
Yeah. And it's, and my piece is a very small part of it. Obviously RL writing a whole book, I don't know how many pages that is a day, but it's a lot. And then to get onto the next one and to the next one and make sure that the logistics are there for getting it to press and getting it in, printed and to the bookstores. And, it was a amazing logistics that made that thing happen.
Yeah, that's really cool. It's one of those things, I guess, sort of trying to liken it to comedy just through the medium of an art form. I only use the quotes for mine. Mine's the quote. Yours is actually art. But I find
we both use finger quotes tonight, though.
Yeah, but it's up for debate which whose art form's more horrific. But we as in yours is actually horror and mine is just actually horrific. But the thing is, I found you said no one really had time to think about it. Like sometimes I find the best comedy sets I'll do is when I'll not be as prepared, or I've got a couple of jokes ready, but the rest is just like on spur of the moment, or I'll go on like a tangent on a joke that I'd planned, and I might sort of like have a side note to that joke, which ends up being better than the punchline. Like I can't count the amount of times that I've started on a joke and then just gone down a rabbit hole of like a side quest and just basically said to the audience, like, you don't want to hear the rest of that joke. Like I've already done better than what I could have done. Like I'll just move on to the next one.
But I mean, that is I worked at a comedy club many years ago and got a chance to watch comedians work. And, what you're talking about is most people are only familiar with the, seeing something on Netflix or, and seeing the finished product. But that's not how it's done. I mean, like you say, you go up the real art or, the real skill is going up with a half-baked idea and going, all right, I got to work this out on stage and, honing that and going, all right, it works a little better that way. But what if I spin that around and I tell it from this side of the story, and you go up the next night and you do it again. And that's the real art form there is, honing it all out. The finished product's great, but it's you gauging off of what you hear and making it happen, which is, to me, that's the impressive part, because that's the hard part, because you don't have a fully formed thing. And once in a while it isn't going to land at all. And you go, all right, I think there's something here. I got to go home and work on this.
Yeah. It's, as I mentioned before, there's like the evolution of a joke. And sometimes I can get stubborn. Like I know that what I want to say can be funny. And the amount of times I'll try it, like I've had buddies of mine just be like, dude, just drop that bit. Like it's just not gonna work. And and it happens with more than just myself. Like I've heard interviews. I listen to a lot of podcasts, as you probably can understand. Like I like this. It's probably the best platform for me to connect to like some of my comedy idols. But I kind of get this. I hear a lot that happens quite often. They'll sort of like even in the professional like world class comedy scene, they sort of have that where it's like you should drop that bit. Like I've heard some stories of jokes that have made it onto Netflix that started off as like you shouldn't keep trying that bit, and then eventually it just sort of clicks because It's kind of coming back to art. It's like when I have a really cool, because I can't draw. Like I just am terrible. Well, I haven't given myself time to learn. Okay, so my art form is by talking. And I guess the audience is kind of my canvas. I'm throwing stuff against them and trying to see what works. It's like when there's no clubs at the moment, it's like trying to do art without a canvas.
Yeah.
But anyway, that's all coming back. Actually, I've got my first comedy gig back coming up, but it's not time for me to plug my dates just yet. But if people are listening to this episode, they already know where I'm at. They found the episode. They had to scroll past the dates to click on the link.
Oh, okay, I got you.
But anyway, that's kind of our medium is that, and
but that's the difference though, where I can sit here and I can make mistakes on my drawings all day. Nobody's watching. You know, like you got to get up in front of somebody and go, all right, here, I'm going to, they're already expecting you to be funny and you got to get up there and be funny, but you didn't work it out yet. And you get to go, that's tough stuff.
Yeah.
I don't know what it would be like to have people looking over my shoulder while I work.
Yeah, I could imagine it just kind of like, because everything I do, I'm getting instant responses to what I'm doing. It'd be like if you were doing an artwork, I could say, and the person that you're doing it for was standing behind you, and every line you drew, they said, no, go that way, or go left, or go up.
But then once you get it going, I mean, I'm sure there's nothing cooler than, getting people to laugh. I'm sure there's nothing as cool.
It is cool. And it's like, I think I was about 18 months into my career before I made someone laugh. I can recall it. I remember the day. It was the first and last time, and I hope to recreate it.
Yeah, but it's that thing of getting that momentum and getting, stringing a bunch of them together. Like I said, I worked in a comedy club. I watched guys who were masterful, who, could just come in and take over the room. And then there's, other guys who thought they could do it. And it's a great art form. It's a great set of entertainment. And I shouldn't say most people. A lot of people haven't gone out and seen comedy live, and there's nothing like it. You can't compare it to anything else. It's not like going to see a band. It's not like going to see a movie. It's not like anything. There's an interesting energy, especially when you get, here it's usually there's three guys, one guy's the MC, the other two guys do their sets.
Yep.
And you get if you get a good complete set, that's a great evening. It's a blast.
Yeah, awesome. It's actually good to discover that you're as well as the initial reason for having you on the show, also a fan of comedy and understand the process, which is kind of like a hidden gem. But yeah, it's also I actually noticed this in the episode and throughout the other episodes, that this subtle, like, I know I get in trouble for this all the time, talking with my hands, and I notice that you do the same as well.
Oh yeah. My hands are flying around. I'm famous for knocking over drinks when I'm talking. So.
Yeah, well, I mean, it's probably not so bad when you're not like a bartender like myself, known for knocking over drinks. Like, I've a Croatian mate that tells me that I knock over too many drinks, and that was definitely telling me something. It's actually, it's one of the, like, because we literally look like from a distance, it looked like we were deaf talking to each other, me and my Croatian mate.
Looked like you were signing. Yeah, I know how that is.
We had our own. It's like we've developed our own sign language that just no one else can understand. But yeah, the final part for the show and how we'll close this off. I usually will have like what I call story time. So it's basically, I know with the PWT podcast, it was very art heavy, and I think that we've because one of the presenters on that show does artwork for wrestling stuff, but we've kind of kept it a little bit like loose with art and other stuff as well. I remember at the end of the episode, you mentioned that there's some stories and stuff that you could come back and do another episode or whatever like that. I didn't want to kind of like hold back and sort of make this so linear and planned. Was there any stories that you have that we didn't cover or that you wanted to share from your experience over the years?
I don't have any like amazing. So creating art is not there's not adventures. Like, okay, we're going to go back to you as a comedian. You start to, things open up again and you travel, you're going to go places, you're going to meet people. There's the opportunity of things happening, where in the art world, I come down the stairs every morning, I sit at the same desk, I do my thing, I get it done. And the stuff that's noteworthy or story worthy is stuff that doesn't happen, that has almost nothing to do with art itself. I've done a lot of things in my life that were interesting. I had a pretty interesting childhood, and when I got out of high school, a friend of mine and I, this was back when you could do it, hitchhiked around the United States by just sticking out a thumb and carrying our backpacks, and we traveled for over 3 months and made our way around the outside edge of the United States. And there was more stories in just that trip alone. While I was in art school, me and at the time my future wife went up to Alaska and camped out for 3 months and worked in the fishing canneries. And and that was a disgusting job, was working in fishing canneries, but it was a way to make some money to come back and pay for schooling. Yep. So and those stories themselves are full podcast worthy tales. And that's the hard part, is that there's no cool art related stories. It's like, hey, I colored in this today. That was the adventure. So the cool things are the things that happen when you stop for the day. And
that's like I said, there's always bits that you can't cover in a podcast, and I'm sure that there's like a lot of people listening to this episode will be attracted to the story part of the artwork and the Goosebumps series, but I always like to have like that medium that people, aside from what I do as comedy, I've got like backstory and like funny. The weird thing is, in my style of art, my backstory, my history, it influences, and it would influence in your situation as well. But the stories I tell on stage are sometimes from my past, and there's some of that for sure that finds its way into my artwork, is, things that I've experienced or things that I remembered that are part of me, are definitely making their way into the art, and they've made their way into Goosebumps. And there's family members that are on Goosebumps covers. And and I'm on a couple, and it's those things that you do. And again, that's how the sneakers ended up in there. I wasn't trying to do anything other than, he's got to have some shoes on. What kind of shoes should he have? Oh, well, let's put these on. These, I think they're cool. They're still my favorite. Let's throw them in. Well, things like those choices could actually had some sway in why the series took off in towards the market of boys because they like wore Converses. It was relatable. They seen stuff that they recognized.
Yeah. And again, there'll be plenty of people who tell you I never grew up. And if, some half-grown man is drawing pictures for young kids and boys that, I'm not that much more grown up than them. So maybe I was the right guy for the task.
Yeah, it seems like this the Goosebumps series was just a perfect fucking storm that everything all came together. And the venue that I work at as a bartender is a live music venue that I also do comedy at. And I can say from experience, to get a group of artists to all collaborate to come up with something completely successful is like the Blue Moon situation in a lot of cases.
And that's with every aspect of everything in life. It's not just art, although I think in art, I think especially in music, because you as a comedian, me as an artist, all you got to do is depend on yourself. But as soon as you're in a band and there's 4 of you or 5 of you that have to, not only play well together, but you got to get along together. That's such potential for things to go wrong. And I'm sure there are incredibly great bands laying in waste just because they couldn't get along. And again, that idea that, time and place have a lot to do with stuff. So the thing that I like to say to people, when they say, oh, what should, no matter what form of art you're pursuing, is you just gotta go after it every day. You gotta be trying your hardest and doing your best work as much as you can, and not try to cherry pick anything, because you don't know when the opportunity is actually happening. Like, the big thing isn't evident. It's not like a flashing light and, oh, okay, this is my spot tonight. This is the one that I'm going to kill on. You don't know. You don't know when that one person is there. Or, I wrote off Goosebumps at the beginning. I just looked at it as, that's going to be fun. I think that's cool. I'll do my best work. And I did my best work on a lot of other things that went nowhere. But as long as you keep throwing out your best work, something's going to hit. And if it does hit right, that's that. But you always have the satisfaction of, I know I was doing my best work. And even if it didn't work out, I know I didn't phone it in. I didn't half-ass that one. I did my best work, and for whatever reason, they didn't like it or didn't go anywhere. Okay, well, that was the best I could do, and it makes you sleep way better at night than if you dick off and don't do stuff the way you're supposed to. And and then you feel disappointed because you weren't, fully engaged. So that's really the one and only piece of advice I have is you give it your 100% when you're doing what you do, so that when the opportunity arises, you're giving yourself the best shot.
Yeah, absolutely. I completely identify with that, because I do that with comedy. Like, if I don't have the best, there you go. There's one for all of the hippie listeners. I identify with that. My chakra aligns with that one. The moons have aligned and the gemstones all are glistening from that one. Because I totally, I like to think that I always go into everything 100%, so I know whether I like it or not. So many people have hobbies for like 10 years and then give it up. And you're like, why'd you quit playing golf, mate? Oh, because I don't want to, I just didn't really get into it. You didn't get into it, you did it for 10 years. Like, I mean, I said golf, what I meant was relationships, but,
Yeah, they're both the same thing.
If I'm honest, they probably both lead to about 3 strokes. I like to go into everything 100%, and it does. Like, if I have a set that doesn't land, and I know it's because I either didn't prepare, or I didn't read the room properly, or like something as simple as like I didn't take an opportunity. Like, I've had opportunities for crowd work before, and I've just gone, oh no, I've got this set that I want to get through, and there'll be like literal gold that just appears in the crowd, and you just don't, and that's what I'll kick myself over. Like, I'll be like, I won't remember the time I tried out that joke and it got a little bit better. I will remember the time that someone came along in the front row, and like I had a golden opportunity once that I took, and I nearly didn't take it, and I was so happy that it happened. I was at this club. It's kind of like it's not a club. It's a cafe, and it turns into a bar at night time. It used to be a bookshop, but now it's just like they have books, but they're not for sale. It's one of those sort of like anyone that own a combi at some point, instant free drink when you go there. Not really, but that's the vibe. And there's this couple sitting in the front row, and I'd say that they would have been in their like maybe 70s. And I say like, oh, is it date night tonight? And they said, oh, we're not dating. I said, oh, are you married? And they said, no. I said, how long you been together? Like, well, how, like, and I basically just went into this, like, well, who's, it's not the time to really fuck around. Like, it's, like,
you're on the clock here. Tick,
it's
tick,
like,
tick.
Who in their 70s is, like, in a complicated relationship? And
I already love these two people.
Yeah, that's basically what I said. I'm like, I love this. I'm like, who's being mysterious about feelings in their 70s? And it was just, and I think that the bit that basically made it, like, that I closed off with on that crowd work bit was I basically just said something along the lines of like, who's going to turn around the game in the fourth quarter? And
hey, come on, you've watched enough sports. It happens.
Yeah,
it happens.
You mentioned that you used to play basketball, so I'm sure you get that reference. But yeah, I'm 5'7", so like I'm not. I've got no, and that's why I did ice hockey. Like I know the path I need to take if I want to do any sports. But so it's one of those things. But that's that's a wrap, man. I really appreciate you being on the show. I really like the flow, and I'm glad that we got through all the questions. And I hope that everybody enjoys listening to this as much as I enjoyed recording it with you, man.
Yeah, it was fun. I appreciate you inviting me.
Yeah. Before we leave, I'll just give you some plugs. I've got your website here. Oh, the horror story of that picture there for a second while it transitions. That wasn't accidental. I just wanted everybody to see me holding my Goosebumps books there for a second. But here's your website. And I noticed down here, and it came up on a previous episode. Now you are selling prints on this, but it's not just as for artworks. It's actually quite a charitable thing that you're doing here with your loads of goods that are going away with the profits from that. Could you tell us a little bit more about the story behind this?
Yeah, so you can at jacobusstudios.com. There is a store, and you can buy Goosebumps prints. Currently, I think I have 10 or 12 of the covers, and you can either get them in 18-inch or 9-inch. And what I do is I take $10 from every sale. The posters, the big posters are $25, small ones are $20. I take half the money, $10 from each poster sale, and we buy food for the local food bank. So the pictures there are the food that I order through Walmart. They deliver it to the house. We throw it in the truck, and we drive it a couple of miles down the road. Is a food pantry to help feed people who are having a tough time. So Yeah, we started doing that during the pandemic when, you know, we all didn't know what was going to happen business wise. Luckily, my business was not affected too much, but I was seeing too much on TV where people, were in lines in their cars getting, looking for food because, they had lost their jobs and they were having a hard time making ends meet. And it was just something that I knew that we could do. And, listen, Goosebumps fans are great. And you can see, I can get quite a bit of food in the truck there every month. And they're wondering what's going on down the street because they don't really know who I am or what we're doing. So we keep showing up with lots of food. They call me or my son the Walmart guy because it's easiest to take the money. I order it online. They deliver all the food to the house, load it in the truck. So yeah, they think somehow we're connected with Walmart, but it's Goosebumps fans that are making this happen.
Awesome. Yeah, that's a really good initiative, man. Totally love to give that a plug. So that's jacobusstudios.com, and I'll put a link in the description to that one for anyone that wants to see it. But if you're watching on YouTube, you can see that I've displayed the website there. But if you like to click links, there's one in the description for you. Thanks again for being on the show, and thank you for all the art and everything over the years, man. I really appreciate it. Not just the art that I've seen as like a consumer, but also you did my tattoo design, and you signed a copy of my book, which is now the prized possession in my Goosebumps collection. So I really appreciate that.
I appreciate you too, Marky. This was great.
One last question, quickly. I forgot. Oh, this was a personal one. I forgot to write down. Do you have a specific horror series, like in the like the Halloween, Freddy, Jason, that sort of stuff that you favor?
The one that stands out, and again, this goes back to what we kind of talked about, where when you see things at certain points in your life, they make a big influence, and usually you're at that age where things just fall into place. The not so much the series. I like the Halloween series. I like the Friday the 13th series. The new Halloween I think it's coming out, or it's just come out.
Yeah.
Looks really good.
Yeah.
That looks really engaging. But I was a big fan of The Shining. I know that's not very original. A lot of people say that, but it came out at the right time. I was always a big Jack fan, and he was in all his glory in that movie, and and it was just twisted enough, but it was I lean way more towards the suspenseful side of horror than the the gore slash and crash. I'd rather you scare the shit out of me through suspense than try to get me to throw up.
Yeah.
That's easy.
Yeah, no, absolutely. It's one of those. Actually, you saying you're a fan of Jack in that series, I was actually listening to an episode. Now, this will divide the crowd. I was listening to an episode of Stern, and they had this impressionist on there who had spoke to Jack's caddy, and what had happened was...
that was who was it? That was I heard that because that's Jim Brewer.
That's right. Yeah. So basically, that's right. It's the Jim Brewer on the Stern.
Jim Brewer lives in the next town, so he's kind of like he's one of ours.
He's up there with the Canberra comedian from New Jersey as well, but one of the lines that comedian says is like, you can take the girl out of New Jersey, you can't take New Jersey out of the girl. And I said, how long have you been out of New Jersey? And she said, 40 years at this point. yeah, but that was now you know the context. It's really funny that for listeners, basically what happens is it goes between Jack and Joe Pesci having an argument with each other, and this guy does both the sides, and it's really good.
It's a winner. Yeah, he's so good at both voices.
Yeah. I love how I can take the risk to just throw a Stone reference out there and like potentially just negate the entire relationship of the podcast that I've built. But yeah, anyway, yeah. Well, this will be that little question there will be a bonus at the end of the episode. So if you've listened through to this part, you got to hear the bonus question. So. Cheers.
Don't buy me a drink. Just name names. Yeah, right. Big Tony. You'll get fucking thrown out of the strip club with your floppy disk.
All day.
Make people feel shamed for shit all day.
Don't blow it.
Turn it into a hard drive.
Yeah, right.
We're here to